Welcome to Free Burn. This is Matt Ballard, your host. This is the podcast where we talk all things mental and behavioral health in the first responder community. Real life firefighters, police officers, EMTs and paramedics, clinicians, and doctors. It's time we have the real conversation and burn the stigma behind first responder mental health, one podcast at a time. And welcome back, folks, to Free Burn 2023. This is your host, Matt Ballard. Today, we're going to be sitting down with Jeff Dill from the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. Jeff holds a master's degree and is a MBCC licensed counselor, retired captain from Palatine Rural Fire District in Inverness, Illinois. Did I say that right?
You did.
Close enough. Okay. He's a member of the American Council Association of National Board of Certified Counselors. He took a position in Las Vegas Fire Rescue in 2021. Is that correct?
Yes, July 1st.
Yep. And you run their behavioral health stuff, right? Administrator. Correct. Okay. And he's also, I guess you're the founder of Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. Is that right?
I am, along with my bride, my wife, who will be 43 years in November. Her name's Karen.
Y'all been married for 43 years.
Yeah, yes.
That's awesome, dude. That's a feat in itself right there.
It takes a lot of work. It's not every day is Disneyland.
I hear you, brother. I know how that goes. So anything else you want to add in on the bio?
No, I don't. Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, tell us a little bit about what led into the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance coming about and how that happened for you.
Yeah, I look back at my life and choices and things that I've done in my life. I always knew my wife and I were married at 19. So I took a job early on driving a truck. We had 2 daughters, 21 and 23. And so I tested the waters in a lot of part-time jobs. I worked as a sports director. I used to cover the Chicago Bulls and interview Michael Jordan.
You serious?
Oh yes. So I said,
wow.
He'd always be the last one to be interviewed because he came out of the shower. He had his $1,000 Italian suits and things. I mean, Very professional. Always looked fabulous, but a very kind, gentle-hearted man.
Yeah.
I worked for the minor league for the Baltimore Orioles. I worked part-time on the PGA Tour for 10 years. And then there were some really bad, awful part-time jobs too. And I tell young kids, just don't learn from the good, the positive things in your life. Learn from the negative things that happen in your life because they develop you. And so I was building my father-in-law and I were building our house in Gilbert's, Illinois in 1987 when a neighbor came by. He was a deputy chief and said, "Hey, we're looking for some volunteer firefighters." And I thought, well, I've tried everything else. I might as well try this too. And I absolutely loved it. I became an EMT and then a paramedic. Of course, the fire academy. I moved up to a lieutenant. And then in 1995, Palatine Rural Fire Protection District was founded in Inverness.
Okay.
So I thought, well, I'm 33 years old. I'll give it a shot. And I was fortunate. I moved up pretty quickly. After a year, I was a lieutenant. A few years later, I was a captain, appointed to battalion chief, and I held that position for about 12 years. And it was during that time, in 2005, when Hurricane Katrina hit. And that Division 1 outside Chicago, including members from our department, went down to New Orleans to help out our brothers and sisters. And when they came back, they were showing me pictures and some videos of how they were picking up bodies in the streets and animals that just littered the landscape, the devastation. And so they went to their employee assistance program counselors, great people. But remember, this is 2005. We did not talk about behavioral health at all. That was just taboo.
Did not. Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, how can I give back to my brothers and sisters? I decided to get my master's degree, and I became a licensed counselor. And in 2009, my wife and I founded Counseling Services for Firefighters, CSFF.
Right.
And we started teaching counselors and chaplains. Hey, you want to work with us, you need to understand this. We're a little different. Not that it's wrong from my point of view, but we're a tad bit different.
Sure.
When in early 2010, I started receiving emails and phone calls from all over the world saying, do you do anything about firefighter suicides? I said, I didn't know we had a problem. I did a lot of research, contacted all the major players in the fire service. No one kept any data. So hence, in early 2010, my wife and I, we founded FBHA. We're a small little nonprofit. And we have a couple of people who work for us, but we get it done. And
Yeah.
I've been tracking and validating these tragic events, ones that the USFA, the NFPA, the NBFC, media, film directors, they all use our data.
Yep.
And so, but it's not just suicide. I mean, we talk about all the other, depression, addiction, PTSD, moral injury.
Yep.
And so I've traveled now well over 1 million miles across the U.S. and Canada speaking and presenting. And I retired in 2015. My
Mm-hmm.
wife and I traveled actually across the United States in our camper and truck for over a year. We went over 40,000 miles visiting our brothers and sisters in the small towns, big cities. We stopped at EMS dispatch locations just to let them know we're out here. If you need a resource, if you need me to find you some counselors or something, this is what we do. So, and then in 2021, I was asked to put an application in for Las Vegas by a friend of mine out here. I said, oh, I'm 59 years old. I have my pension from my fire service, working at PHA, but I'm a firm believer of Maslow's pyramid,
Sure.
self-actualization.
Mm-hmm.
Take what you've learned and pass it on to others. And so I put my application in, and out of the 19 or so, I was fortunate to be selected for this position. I've been in for 2.25 years.
That's awesome, man.
That's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
There you go. Yep. Making an impact too, for sure.
I appreciate that. We hope to. And times are tough. Despite the 1,937 fire and EMS and 6 dispatchers,
Mm-hmm.
we're still losing people. And people I speak to others now that are in this business. There were no organizations around in 2010
No.
talking about behavioral health. If there was, it was far and few in between that we never even knew each other.
Yeah.
And so we talk today, and we all get frustrated because we'll know the ones we lose, but we'll never know the ones we save. I tell them.
Yep.
And so just stay the course. Keep on doing what you're doing, helping others, helping families, the family survivors, helping our brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
We do make a difference, even though we still are losing our brothers and sisters.
Yeah. I look at your website pretty often, almost on a weekly basis, just to see what's going on with it and where we're at, and
yeah,
man, it's just,
unfortunately the numbers change. I mean, just what's today, Friday? Just this week, I validated 3 additional suicides, and that's the ones just what we know of. We estimate about a 65% reporting, Matt. Well, we track career, volunteer, wildland, military fire, EMS, and as well as dispatchers. So we feel we miss out a lot on the volunteers as well as EMS and dispatchers.
Yeah. I've seen the numbers, I've seen those numbers climb this year, just this year. And it's just like, man, what do we got to do? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I guess we're never doing enough, but what kind of impact can we have?
Well, and that's all we can really do is try. I mean,
Yeah.
it is very difficult. Out of the 1,937, I've personally spoken to about 1,800 chief officers to hear the methods, the reasons, and collect that data. But we're dealing with human beings. We're dealing with emotions. We're dealing with PTSD. We're dealing with moral injury. We're dealing with relationships.
Yep.
And so you can't babysit every member of every EMS organization. It's just not done. So we are accountable for our own actions.
Sure.
And all we try to do is educate you on what those actions look like and when you need to step up and either ask for help or step up and say to someone, hey, what can I do to assist you? How can I walk the walk with you?
Right.
And those are the challenges that we face on a daily basis here at FBH.
Yeah. Are you seeing anything that's like, I hate to say trending, but do you see any like trends that are leading more to this, or is it just kind of all over different stuff? Is there
It
anything
is.
specific?
It truly is. And I will tell you, I speak at a lot of conferences. I got a couple coming up. I'm up at Montana Fire Chiefs. I'm at the South Dakota Firefighters Association coming up in the next few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
And when people introduce me and say, "Well, here's Jeff Dill, the subject matter expert," I am not a subject matter expert. I will debate anyone that thinks that they might be. We might have
Yeah.
a small understanding as to why, but an expert is able to really describe and say, "Hey, these are the paths to eliminate that issue."
Mm-hmm.
We're just not doing it. Like I said, we're at 62, 60. It'll be 64 or so, 65 for this year. And, yes, the numbers are down dramatically from 2015, 2016. So we can look at that aspect as being very positive. If we
Sure.
can say losing people is positive. But in
Right.
2015, 2016, we were losing about 120, 130 firefighters. So we're definitely down over the years. And that's the comfort that we have to take in knowing that we are making a difference out there.
Yeah.
And we're not the kind that blow our horn on our Facebook and say, "Hey, look, we saved another life" and things.
Sure.
That's between us and those that call on us for help and things. And I
Mm-hmm.
always tell people I'm just trying to get one extra grade up there, so when I stand at the pearly gates, the good Lord says, "Hey,
Amen.
come on in. You got one more positive than negative."
Amen to that, brother. I know how that is for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. It's like, just the little bits that that we do. I don't, it's not a whole lot. I mean, just podcasting, and then we go to a few little fire departments here and there and just talk a little bit about awareness level, for mental health and behavioral health. I'm hoping that's having an effect. And I think it does, just saying, hey, we're here for a resource. Use us, and if we can't find you the people, we'll definitely get you to the right people, or try to. So,
Yeah, don't underestimate what the power of a podcast can do.
sure.
And you're out there spreading the word from me and other guests and things, and
Mm-hmm.
and that's just your piece of the educational
Sure.
program that's going on here. So don't underestimate what you do and the power of podcasts and having guests on so that people can hear. So
Yeah.
if it's not for you getting that out, then people they miss a message.
Yep.
And they'll miss a message here from FBHA today.
There
So,
you go. Yep.
kudos to you, Matt, for all your dedication and work.
Yeah. I appreciate that. Kudos to you for what you, man. I mean, you're one of the first websites that I found whenever I went through my personal journey. And probably don't remember, but I contacted y'all. I was like, hey, can I use some of y'all's stuff? And y'all contact me back and it's like, yeah, go for it, So
No, absolutely. It's not our intent to keep everything hidden out at FBHA. We want
yeah,
people to see what the issues are out there, and that's
yeah,
why when we did our white paper, we're not charging for that. You can download it for free off our website.
right.
And it's all about passing that education, like I said, that Maslow's pyramid. Take
Mm-hmm.
what you know and pass it on to others. And
Yep.
I think that's beneficial in life.
Yeah. And just putting being able to see those suicide deaths for what they are, and being able to go out and talk about the awareness level stuff and just putting that picture to it and letting guys see it. Hey, yeah, this is real. And here's the reporting. Yeah, it's very important.
Absolutely. And that brings up a great point because I get that a lot in our workshops. And so many people say, "Well, why do you show the data, Jeff? Why do you show the different methods?" And I mean, Matt, some of them are just absolutely horrific, and it just makes
Yeah.
you think, how much pain were our people in? But I tell them I show the data because this is the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
This is what's going on with our brothers and sisters, and we need everyone to step up
Yeah.
to take watch out for each other, but also to watch out for yourself. And that's we're very confidential. We never use names or
Sure.
departments. And that's that promise that I give to the chief officers that I speak to or the supervisors. Unless families call us and say, "Hey, please use our loved ones' death to educate others,"
Sure.
then we're honored to use that loved one's name, because I think it gives them some type of comfort and closure that the loss of their loved one is now helping others.
Yeah.
And so, the confidentiality aspect of it is very important. But yes, we showed the data because this is the reality of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So what's the process? Like, how do y'all record that data? I mean, is there?
That's a great question because early on, we if you go to our webpage, there's a bullet point that says, reporting firefighter EMS
Mm-hmm.
reporting for suicide reporting. People click on that and it drops into a form, and then they fill it out and they hit submit. And then it would come to info@ffbha.org, and I'm able to read what that info is, but there's no email address attached to it. There's no
Okay.
name attached to it. So I have no idea where they come from. That way I can honestly say to the chiefs, when they say, "Well, who reported that?" I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, uh, it comes in anonymous. But because I've traveled now and for so many years, people know me. They'll text me, they'll
Yeah.
call me and say, "Hey, Jeff, our neighbor in town, or we just lost someone." I've had chiefs call me en route to the scene and say, "Jeff, what am I supposed to say to our people or to the families?" Because it's something that you're really not trained on.
Sure.
You're in, say 6:30 at night, you're at home and you're having dinner with your family, and you get a call, from the battalion chief saying, "We're responding to one of our own members who took their lives."
Yeah.
And it stuns you for a moment. It's like, wow, and then you try to organize your thoughts, and it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So, but so either way, whoever contacts me, they're all under the protection of the confidentiality
Sure.
that I
Yeah.
promise, and I have to stay to that. I mean, it's very difficult because when I speak at conferences and chiefs will come up and say, "Hey, Jeff, how you doing? You remember me?" I'm like, "Okay, no, I can't say yes, I remember who you are," because people around would say, "Well, how do you know Jeff?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
once we're by ourselves, then I'll say something. But I have to be very cognizant of the surroundings and
Sure.
who I'm talking to.
Yeah. And that's it. I mean, even like being a peer support guy, I got to be very
Yeah,
careful. I mean,
absolutely.
especially working with our own guys, it's very, in a small department like we are, right?
Mhm.
It can be difficult at times because everybody knows, like they see a guy go out. I mean, they know he's gone, out on mental health leave or whatever. It's just very hard to keep that anonymity within within
No,
yourself, really, and everything else just within the department, alone. So
it,
yeah,
it, it truly is, Matt. And as well as many of us who are, I run the peer support team here in Vegas. If you have a break in confidentiality, that team's done for 10 years.
yeah,
No doubt about it. If I had let people out on FBHA about the departments or who the person was that took
sure,
their lives, we would be done. No one would want
yeah,
to talk to us
yep,
because there are chiefs who have, in confidentiality, said that
hmm,
families really don't want anyone to know about this, but I know who you are, Jeff. I've heard you speak, and I know that you'll keep it.
yeah,
And when we send out the generic graphs, is as many of you have used, that they see there's no departments, there's no names and things like that. So
right,
there's no really identifying marker for
yeah. I know I talked to one of the groups here. It's in North Texas. And I was talking to her the other day, and she was telling me that there were 10 just in North Texas. And I'm like, we were talking about the numbers from the Firefighter Behavioral Health Alliance. And then
it.
she's like, yeah, she had heard that there were, and I don't know where she got this information, but she was saying that there were 10 just in North Texas. And I'm just like,
Yeah, police and things, and
I
yeah,
think so. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. It's yeah,
Cause
it's. I don't track police suicides because that's not my culture.
mhm,
And as much as so many want to add and say, "Hey, first responders," it's a different world for police.
sure it is.
And it's. I think at times it's very it's a lot more difficult for them because, when you're struggling with whatever that issue is, depression or addiction or relationships, most of the time they're alone by themselves driving around. And
Yep.
when you're alone, what's going through your mind all the time? That issue,
Hmm.
to
Yep.
the point where, they have a gun right there by their side. And so it's challenging for those organizations that are trying to do their best to help out our brothers and sisters in the Lord.
Yeah. Yep. For sure. They don't have that kitchen table like we do. Come back to the
Right.
firehouse and just sit down and be able to vent a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Well, and plus, you can see them all day and see if there's some type of behavioral change
Yeah.
within, from day to day or from hour to hour. And you don't get that in the police
Mm-mm.
force.
No, that's a different world in itself for sure.
No doubt about it.
All right. Well, let's jump into a little bit about the moral injury. We kind of talked about this before, and I
Yeah.
know very, very little, about the moral injury into stuff. So very interested in that.
Yeah. It's a subject that's near and dear to my heart. In I'd say September of 21, two firefighters here in Las Vegas called me out to one of their stations and said, "Hey, Jeff, we want to show you a TED talk." And it was about a doctor talking about moral injury in first responders. Yeah,
Hmm.
I think it lasted like 20 minutes or whatever, how long TED Talks last.
Yep.
And so they said, "Have you heard of it?" And I said, "Well, being a licensed counselor, I've heard of it, but it was really never discussed and promoted as much because it's not a diagnosis. It's not in the DSM-5 that counselors use to diagnose and treat." And so I thought, well, you know what? Knowing who I am, I always like to do research on different things.
Right.
And I found out very quickly that this could be, when I look at my data and looked at moral injury, I'm thinking this could be something that I need to know a lot more about. And so I talked to someone from the Shea Center, and Dr. Jonathan Shea is
Hmm.
the gentleman who's credited with the term moral injury. I talked to Dr. Bruce Litz out of Boston University, and him and his team put together the moral injury outcome scale.
Hmm.
It's an assessment in regard to moral injury. I talked to the military. Military's been doing a lot of studies on moral injury for many
Really.
years.
Yeah.
And so what I found out was that moral injury is basically that humans are born inherently to want to help others, to do good.
Right.
And for us in the first responder world, we get in here and we're trained to save lives. That's what we're doing. We're out there saving lives. But you know as well as I do, our percentages of saving lives is very, very minuscule.
Yep.
We're
For
not
sure.
gods. We're just trained to help what we can. But most of the times, we're not bringing back that
Mm-mm.
victim from the vehicle accident, that PEDS drowning, the full arrest. And I think that's why we celebrate so much. We get so excited when we have a childbirth or we do bring someone back from
Sure.
a full arrest, because it's like, hey, we got a victory here.
Hmm.
And so, all those things start playing on your emotions of, you feeling helplessness and not being able to do your job. And it hits that emotions of, shame and guilt. But one key aspect of moral injury is betrayal.
Hmm.
Betrayal by management. Yeah, you promised us more people, less overtime, better equipment, better pay, or maybe betrayal by others that you work with. Why are you out bullying people? Why are you talking about us? And so why are you so negative? Um, or maybe you see someone stealing, drugs and medication, so you
Hmm.
feel betrayed. Hey, you're not supposed to be doing that. Or maybe ourselves. Now we see people doing those things, bullying or stealing, and we don't do anything. So we
Right.
feel betrayed. But the big key to that is that we know that 60 to 65% of the first responders have gone through divorce.
Yep.
And so maybe that guilt of the way we treated our loved one or our children, or maybe we had affairs, and so the divorce is impending, and so we carry that guilt within
Hmm.
us.
Yep.
And I started looking at all of the data that I have, and little do people really realize that unknown is number one. When I call the fire chiefs or family members that call us, Unknown is number one, but the number one known reason is relationships by far. Relationships within their own personal life, relationships within the fire or EMS organization, and that can be relationships meaning negative. I mean, our data is littered with those that were bullied in the academies, bullied in the probation era,
Mm-hmm.
that they had their time period.
Sure.
So all those things play a role in this thing that we call moral injury. And when I spoke with the military, they told me you can have PTSD and moral injury at the same time. But understand, Matt, that PTSD, a lot of it is trauma based, fear based, things that
Mm-hmm.
we saw that shock us. Moral injury is more our emotional, our spirit. And I think, yeah, I'm a firm believer that moral injury plays just as large, if not larger, role than PTSD, especially in our suicides. Because when I talked to the
Really?
military, they looked at their data, and I asked them, I'll never forget asking this question. So, when you looked at your data, what was the highest contribution of suicide to, moral injury or PTSD? And they said by far it was in towards moral injury. And you look at it for the military. I mean, there's these young men and women. They're in church one day, and all of a sudden, next week they're trained to kill people.
Sure.
And so it becomes that moral injury, that betrayal of maybe themselves or society. And society can be betrayed. I think there's a lot of moral injury nowadays in society,
Yep.
when, especially related to the first responders, police.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying not to do their best job, and people want to defund them. They're shooting at them. They're killing them. They're beating them
Yep.
up. Or even during the COVID, I mean, how many firefighters, how many military lost their jobs because they didn't get vaccinated?
Right.
So all that comes into that betrayal, and I just wonder, when did all that start? That betrayal, that anger? Because Matt, you know as well as I do, I started as a volunteer in 1990, 91
Mm-hmm.
area, and calls are so much more different than what they are back then.
They
There's a
really
lot
are.
of anger. Yeah, there's a lot of anger. There's a lot of people committing crimes because they're trying to survive, trying to feed their kids and things.
Mm-hmm.
And so they get to that last moment where they're trying to do what they can, that instinct to survive. And so there's just a lot of anger, a lot of hurt out there, a lot
Yeah.
of distrust of our government. And
Yep.
so all those things come into play with this moral injury. So it's a
That's,
challenge that we need to face in society as well as in the first responder world.
yeah, that's very interesting. And you're on to something for sure. I've been kind of looking at that a little bit, and yeah, that's like dead on the nose, man. Everything you said. So very
Yeah,
interested in
yeah.
learning more about that.
Well, and I look at it because I thought I was struggling with PTSD back in 2011. My 22-month-old granddaughter lost her right eye to cancer,
Mm-hmm.
and retinoblastoma, and I'll never forget thinking I should have done more. Why didn't I see the signs, of this god awful disease?
Right.
This is my PSA. Retinoblastoma affects children 0 to 7. It can be in one eye or it can be in both eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And easy sign to see if you know what you're looking for. When you take a picture, you usually get red eye. And for Lily, it was red in the left and white in the right. And it was the flash bouncing off the tumor.
Wow.
And
Okay.
we went back 8 months. You could see it. And we never knew. And so, we found out in August of 2011 that she had cancer, that 50% of her globe was encapsulated. The eye had to come out right away. And the
Mm-hmm.
following week, she had the surgery. And, and it's like, was that PTSD, or now that I think more of that moral injury? Why
Yeah.
I should have done something. I'm her grandfather. I should have seen the signs, something.
Yeah.
And it's like, you never even knew, you never even heard of the disease,
Right.
So
Yeah.
just beating yourself up, and that moral injury component of trying to protect. And here it
Yeah.
was, my granddaughter. So I mean, she's doing fabulous today and doesn't really know the difference. She has the one
Sure.
eye. She rides horses. She's just a beautiful young lady and lots of friends. So, but that moral injury, it comes in so many different parts that we don't even realize it. And so that's why, I decided, let's do a white paper. But funny thing about white papers, I always go back to my first paper that I turned in for my master's degree. It
Right.
had an A on it, big red A, and then in circles it said "See me," and
Oh.
that brought trauma. That brought trauma back from my high school years. When the
Yeah.
teacher, "Oh, see me,"
Uh-huh.
and which was usually never good. But
Right.
my professor said, "Hey, Jeff, you brought up perspective of the subject matter from a first responder." And he said, we usually don't get a lot of responders going through for their master's degree in counseling.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And he said, but you'll never write a white paper. And I said, well, why am I going to write a white paper? This is 2007 or so, 2008. So, white paper.
Yeah.
And he said, because you speak and write from your heart. And white papers, that's not what you need. So when I saw this about moral injury, and I looked at my dad about relationships, and I have a great friend, Liz Fletcher, Dr. Liz
Mm-hmm.
Fletcher Anderson, and she's down at the University of Houston. She's a captain for a volunteer fire department in Texas. And
Mm-hmm.
I called her and I said, hey, Liz, I know you've written a couple of white papers. Would you be interested? She said, absolutely. Absolutely. I said, well, I talked to Dr. Litz. He says, feel free to use the moral injury outcome scale for, to send out to fire departments.
Mm-hmm.
So great. So all of a sudden, these reports back in, and we're looking at it and say, well, we don't know what the heck it means. so I did some research and I came up on Mark Schimmelflang. We call him Chaps. He's a
Mm-hmm.
military chaplain, and he runs the moral injury unit at Rush Memorial in Chicago.
Okay.
And I said, hey, Chaps, we're getting this data and things. Would you like to be part of the white paper team? And he said, absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's how we came together, and we're currently starting our white paper 2, and white paper 3 is on the drawing board. So
Okay.
white paper 2 will look a lot more at treatments and modalities and things like that, so that our counseling brothers and sisters will not only just focus on PTSD, because that's
Yeah.
the key word for everyone, that maybe there are some other issues like moral injury that we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
that's how that all came about.
So the white paper 1 is out.
Yeah, that came out in February. People can download it off our webpage at
Okay.
fbha.org. You just scroll down on the front page and you can download it for free. And
Okay.
please, we ask people, and they have. I mean, it's just got just a boatload of hits, and pass it along to others, pass it around to your department, to counselors. We
Sure.
need to make sure we understand about moral injury.
Yeah. I spoke with one of the counselors that, not my personal counselor, but one that I work with through our peer program. And we talked a little bit about the moral injury stuff. And she, like you, I mean, she knew about it, right? But she hasn't really dove into it. So I will definitely pass that on to them. And, anybody that I can, just to learn a little bit more about it,
Exactly, and how it applies in our world, both in our professional and our personal lives as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome, man. Thank you for doing that and just taking the time and being able to see that, and be the one to throw some white papers out on that is going to be awesome. Yeah. That's
Yeah,
cool
it's
stuff.
I believe me. Many nights I asked the good Lord, hey, man, why me? Why choose me for this mission? I mean, I didn't lose any family members or friends growing up to suicide. Yeah, I saw it on the job and things, but
Sure.
you know what?
Yeah.
You don't question. You don't question.
No.
You just do. And
Yeah.
so, like I said, it's I enjoy it, but there will be a time limit. I'm
Sure.
62 years old. I'm 62 years old now. I've been doing this for about 14 years now. You look at 2009, about 14 years. So there might be a time when I retire both from Las Vegas here in July of 2026. I'll be 65. That I
Yeah.
might just turn the reins over to someone and hope they can take FBHA on to better, greater things.
Sure.
So we are always looking to say, hey, what's our succession
Yeah.
plans?
There's
That's
definitely
on
value in
that.
there.
Yeah.
What
Well,
you
there's a
built.
lot of data. There's a lot of data.
Yeah.
and that's important. I hate to, like today, if the roof collapses on me right now, that is gone. No one
Oh,
has ever seen, no one has ever seen it. So I
yeah.
mean, my wife maybe could get access to it, but no one's
Sure.
ever seen it. So, and they would never know all the stories and the conversations that I've had with fire chiefs and family members, and the brothers and sisters that we've come to help and know. And unfortunately, I've become close, over these years with 35 very good brothers and sisters, but 19 of them have taken their lives, and so they fell prey
Man.
to their demons. So we're in the middle of a book. I have a very good friend, Blake Tanner, who's helping me write a book. He's actually doing a lot of the writing. I'm supplying because once again, you
Yeah.
can't, you have to have some type of writing ability. So
Sure. Yeah.
we hope to have the book out early next year, and so
Awesome,
there's
dude.
just a lot of different things that we're working on right now.
Yeah. You're doing great things, man. And I'm not just
I
saying that. You really
I,
are. You know that, you know.
I appreciate it. Like I said, just want to get that one mark up when I stand
Yeah.
at the pearly gates.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you, man. It's just like, I asked the same question, why me? I mean, obviously I've had my own little personal journeys and stuff, but I
Mm-hmm.
mean, I don't know. It's just like he opens up the doors and I just continue to walk through them. I'm willing to do it, and as long as he can use me, if it ends tomorrow, then I'm okay with that. But if he uses me for the next 20 years, I'm okay with that too. If I can just have some kind of effect in one little bitty way, that's all I want, and that's why I
And
do
and you
what I do.
and you have to know yourself. And it's it is, and I don't want to say a special gift, but it is a gift. I have a lot of empathy for people. I mean, that's
Yep.
just something that comes natural to me. But I'm not an empath.
Mm-mm.
And those are two different things. My bride, my lovely wife, she's an empath. And an
Mm-hmm.
empath absorbs all that to the point where they feel that pain and that depression.
Yep.
And I don't. I mean, I like I said, I help out others. I have empathy for them. But if I was to carry on as an empath and validate 1937 suicides, I would have had to stop a long time
Sure.
ago. So you take your blessings in this world and you run with them. And
Yeah.
every one of us has blessings, whether whatever that talent is, whatever that was given to you at birth or that you've worked on.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell people that all the time. Learn from the negatives, right?
Yep.
And grow from the positives and look at the blessings in our lives. Even though you're going through some very difficult times, maybe a loss of a loved one, loss of a job, but take stock of the blessings that you've had all these years as well, and lean on those to help you get back on your feet.
Yep.
So it's a challenge. Life is a challenge nowadays. It's not easy
Oh,
for everyone.
absolutely it is. We're just in a different world these days, you know.
Right.
So,
Hmm.
um, one thing that you could leave with new recruits or even guys that are getting ready to retire and just the fire service in general when it comes to mental health, behavioral health, what do you think is that one thing that you'd like to pass along?
Well, I'm a firm believer of a phrase I coined many years ago, and that's internal size up. We need to ask ourselves every day, why am I acting this way? Why am I feeling this way? And the best thing that we can do is lift to others.
Mm-hmm.
You're coming into these academies and you're building bonds and relationships with the people around you, and they get to see and know how you act. And if they start saying, "Hey, you're just not on your game today," we have to learn how to listen. We have to listen because people see us better than we will ever see ourselves.
Yep.
And we have to listen to our bodies when we're not exercising anymore, or maybe because we're struggling with depression, or we picked up an addiction because we're running from some pain or fear. We're not sleeping right, stress and anxiety. So our body's telling us these things. So we have to learn to listen to others as well as listen to ourselves and our bodies. They're the greatest marker right there, saying, "Hey, this is something's going on." And for
Yeah.
retirees, I think one of the things that we really need to do with retirees, and we're working on building programs for that here in Las Vegas. We found that out of the data that we found with FBHA out of 327, and it's difficult to get active, it's more difficult to get retirees. But out of
Mm-hmm.
those 327, 37 of them took their lives within the first week of retirement. And so we went out and we spoke to 127 retirees, recently retirees, and found the three big issues of loss of identity, loss of belonging, and lack of purpose.
Yeah.
And if I could just make some advice to those in the fire service, those that are about to retire, to really understand that this job does not define who you are.
Right.
It's just, as much as I love being a firefighter and I would do it 10 out of 10 times, it never defined who I was.
Right.
So that when it comes time where you maybe even get hurt on the job and you can't work anymore, don't let that be the depressing statement that, oh, no, I'm not a fireman. My life is over with. It's not. It's
Yeah.
absolutely an opportunity to open up a door to another journey.
Mm-hmm.
And so that retirement is prepare yourself for that. A year and a half out, start looking at, do I have a business that I want to, or a hobby I want to take into a business? Understand do I want to be an LLC, a nonprofit? Do I, media, marketing, payroll, all
Yep.
those things? Start looking at that. Take some classes.
Mm-hmm.
Or, especially if you're in a relationship, if you're married or have a partner, 6 months out, you need to start talking to a marriage counselor, because that day you walk in and say, hey, I'm home. And,
Yep.
your loved one looks at you and says, oh, my Lord. So, those,
Get
you
out.
can't expect,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
you can't expect them to change their whole life, because for
Sure.
20, 25 years as a volunteer or career, you
Mm-hmm.
responded to calls. You went to
Yeah.
training on Thursday nights and Saturdays as a volunteer. So they always had their own schedule. You can't expect them to, change overnight on that. So you talk. And that's what I think the biggest thing I want people to know is that you need to talk to each other, especially as you're approaching retirement. What are our needs? What are our goals? Because I know from experience and talking to so many of our other brothers and sisters who've retired, long after those phone calls start dropping from the brothers and sisters you work with, it's
Mm-hmm.
good to have your support system around you, whether it's your loved one, whether it's your children, your family, whatever it is. Start building that that relationship with your loved one.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Awesome, man.
so that,
That's good stuff. One more thing.
sure.
What's your advice for peer team members, newly peer team members? What's the number one thing that you would recommend for them, or a piece of advice you'd give them?
Go to counseling once or twice a year, because you cannot go on calls. You have issues in your own life and then start absorbing other people's issues. We have to start understanding when peer support really came around in 2014, when Matt Olson and Sarah Gurr from the Illinois peer support team created that and started training, and then all of a sudden you had the IFF and so many others out there. We forgot
Yep.
to take care of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been saying this for years and years, Matt, that if you're on a peer support team, you need to send them once or twice a year to a counselor or a chaplain to talk it over. Because unfortunately, it's come to fruition now. We are starting to see more and more of our suicide data of those members that were on peer support teams, including one
Really?
recently last month, who was a leader of a peer support team for a fire department. So
Mm-hmm.
we need to make sure we take care of our brothers and sisters who are doing some great work by being peer support team members.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I'll still go, and I'm, 2 years out from when I went through my stuff, and I still go just to offload stuff, being a peer team member, doing podcasts like this, and, you're constantly in contact with talking to people that are, about bad stuff that's happened to them. So yeah, you got to offload that stuff for sure. I agree.
Absolutely, and kudos to you for doing that.
Yeah.
To take care of yourself, because
Yep.
it's a lifetime of taking care of yourself.
Yeah, it's invaluable to me. I mean, it's just like, I know that it works, and I know the effect that it's had on my life. And yeah, I mean, I'll go as long as I need to go. I don't even care, and I'm not even afraid to say so.
Yeah, And we want organizations to be involved. We started consulting with organizations on creating behavioral health programs. It's a 12-point program. And, it's based on our mantra. One of our mantras is that we want you to have a great career.
Yep.
But we want you to have a better return.
Yep.
And so those 12 points cover from the academy through teaching families, chaplains, counselors, writing guidelines and policies, and then including a retirement program.
Right.
It's important organizations, and they're not, we design them for the size of your organization. So it truly is, it's important because this stuff is not going away.
No.
As you know.
No.
And until they get machines to do our world, we're dealing with human beings, and we're seeing a lot of different things that
Sure.
will shock our system, our heart, and our souls. So, get involved in creating a behavioral health program.
Yep. 100%. Our departments need that. We deserve it. Our guys deserve it.
Absolutely.
Our coworkers deserve it. So,
and
cool,
our families,
man.
Our families need it. So
don't leave them out. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. If
That's
anybody
right.
deserves it, they do. I mean, my wife stood behind me. We've been married for almost 28 years now, and it's just, I couldn't have made it without her. She was my support, 100%.
Yeah,
her and the Lord.
You guys are rookies.
Compared to you, yeah, we are.
Yeah, 20 years, man. That was like 14, 15 years ago for me.
I'm getting there. I'll never catch you technically, but yeah, I might get to where you're at one day.
One day.
Yeah.
With the good Lord's blessings.
Yeah, there you go, brother. Absolutely. Well, man, I sure appreciate you coming on. Is there anything else you want to add?
We could talk for hours and hours.
Sure we can. Yeah.
Like I said, the one thing that makes us different than anyone else out there is that, not only the data collecting, but out of our 11 workshops, 90% of it comes from our brothers and sisters. It's not the things that, I pull off the internet. It's real life experiences that people have gone through that have shared with us that we share with our other brothers and sisters.
Yeah.
It's a blessing that it's both a blessing and a curse, I guess. But
sure.
I'm deeply honored to be a guest on your podcast, and just keep up the great work of passing along that behavioral health to our brothers and sisters across the nation.
Man, I sure do appreciate it. It's an honor to have you on here. I mean, I've not known you, but I've known of you for a long time.
Right.
And, when the podcast started, I'm like, man, I got to see if this guy will come on. And I mean, you responded like super quick, and that's awesome. I'm very honored that you came on and gave me the time to pass on some great information for sure.
Well, thanks a lot, Matt. And, to your listeners, stay safe out there.
Yep. 100%. So anybody that is out there that is struggling or maybe having suicidal thoughts or, ideations or anything, just needs help. 988 is a suicide crisis lifeline. There's many other lifelines out there that, you can get in contact with me through freeburn2023@gmail.com, through our social media, Jeff's website. I mean, there's tons of resources out there. If you need help, don't be afraid to ask, don't be afraid to reach out.
Absolutely.
And we're going to keep on burning that stigma one podcast at a time. Jeff Dill, I appreciate you, man.
Take care, Matt. You have a great weekend.
All right. We'll see you. Thank you, sir.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Freeburn 2023 podcast. If you or somebody you know is in crisis, reach out to the Suicide Crisis Lifeline at 988. Or if you're looking for counseling resources, contact us at freeburn2023@gmail.com. We'll do our best to get you to where you need to be. Let's keep burning that stigma, one podcast at a time.